Thank you very much to the organizers of this event for inviting me here today. I'll be speaking on a topic which I have titled Youth Digital Pathways for Sustainable Development. I always tell people when they say that countries have resources, gold, bitumen, platinum, for a country like ours, Nigeria, and even Africa as a whole, our currency or our best natural resource are young people. So it's very important that we own this and see how we can use our youth to basically propagate and change our lives and hopefully the world as well. We basically see where basically says that 60% of African population are under 25 years old, right? We basically also see where, quite a number of them, maybe less than 80, are on social media today, and 57% even growing basically have a smartphone. I tell people that for a young person today, in our days, we all want to buy laptops, but a young person today would buy a smartphone before they buy a laptop, and if they have money to buy another device, they may probably buy a tablet before they buy a laptop as well, which basically shows that I will basically call them, born in the cloud. The World Economic Forum and larger organizations are basically saying that the median age of young people are between 19 to 25, which basically tells you the capacity that we have. So when you look at countries who want to think about economies of scale, or countries who want to think about how they will grow in the next 20 or 30 years, they actually want to engage young people who have the strength and energy to basically move that forward. And there are stats also that basically show us that even in Africa, that we have young people in our population that can move things forward. And what drives our young people? First of all, I would say music, because I love music, right? In my early days, I also used to rap. And please don't ask me to rap for you. But our young people are so driven by music. Our young people driven by enterprise as well. People want to basically do business. If you understand the startup world or startup economy, you basically see that in the last 15 years or so, quite a number of young people just want to be entrepreneurs, just want to use their ideas to move things forward. And like I mentioned to you, basically the World Economic Forum also shares that by 2050, one in every person out of 4 would be Africans, which also goes to the point to say that we are a lot in our numbers and we have the capacity to change our world. Our young people stats basically shows that there's huge migration going on. Apart from the Japa syndrome, which we all know, we also see that there's a huge migration from the rural areas to the urban areas. When you go to the villages, you hardly see young people there anymore because people want to come into town and create a future for themselves. And it basically shows as well that Africans are very entrepreneurial, as it were. And if you look at all these things, I basically, summarize it to say that the world is becoming more African. I would even say that the world is even becoming more Nigerian, because if you look at globally around the world, in sports, in music, in fashion as well, Nigerians are basically leading the pack, and that's where we find ourselves today. But when we talk about the world, where are we in the world, considering the fact that we're also talking about youth digitization in this generation? A study shows you where people talk about industrial revolution, of where the world has been from hundreds of years ago even till now. And basically it started with mechanization, and now we're at the age of digitization, where people can basically do much more than they used to do hundreds of years ago. Just to break down, the first industrial revolution. So it's basically broken down into 4 revolutions, from the first to the fourth. And the first one talks about mechanization, where we began to see the cart and the horse, the steam engine, and we begin to see in the second industrial revolution where electricity began to drive how people were able to power their factories and also even light up their homes as well. The third industrial revolution basically heralded the personal computer as we know it. I don't know any of you here who can remember Pentium 286, Pentium 386. I don't think anybody here will remember it, but that's basically what we used back then. And like I mentioned to you now, you basically have your mobile phone or your tablet that is as powerful as those systems. So my point being that the Industrial Revolution basically shows you a timeline of how far, the world has come. And today, we find ourselves in the fourth industrial revolution, where we talk about digitization, where we talk about AI, machine learning, quantum computing. And it basically shows you today that our world is complex. Our world is changing. Somebody here would say, I'm waiting for my Uber. Imagine somebody 30 or 40 years ago would look at you like you just spoke French to him. He doesn't understand. He would rather walk across the road and flag down a yellow cab or a yellow taxi, and he would price the guy, I'm going to VI or I'm going to Ojodu, and it's either, your price works for me or it doesn't work for me, and the guy zooms out. But now, you can sit down in the comfort of this room using your mobile phone, and you're able to see what kind of car you want, what kind of price works for you, and if the guy is going to come and pick you or not. And if he's going to come and pick you, he is going to call you to say, your Uber is here. And you walk 5 or 10 steps, get into a car, sit down like a king or a queen, and they, drop you where you're going to. That didn't exist 30 years ago. So it basically shows you how the world is changing. The likes of, AI today is changing our world, where we have, for example, ChatGPT and Google Gemini and a whole lot of them that is helping us do our work a little bit faster. So from, like I said, social media to big data and the rest, our world is really changing. And looking at this as well, we basically see that even organizations are trying to digitize what they're doing. Technology is running much more faster than regulation, because if you understand AI and if AI actually does what it's supposed to do, governments are saying, how do we begin to regulate or ensure that we'll follow the guardrails as a country, as a nation, as a people, even with these emerging technologies that we see today. And I thought about it again. I don't think 30 years is a long time, but 30 years ago, we didn't have smartphones. 30 years ago, we didn't have apps. 30 years ago, we didn't have e-commerce, where you can sit down, even here right now, and you can shop and somebody delivers it to you. 30 years ago, we didn't have, I want to join a conference call. Somebody's going to be half a way around the world, and you're able to see the person, and you're able to transact business. That basically shows you how technology has evolved over a while. But when you look at 30 years from now, is there anybody who can tell me any of those companies there in the box there? The first one, anybody tell me what that company represents? Does anybody know? The second one, ChatGPT. The third one, Gemini. Okay, the first one is called Perplexity AI. I think everybody should have it. It's wonderful. But the point I'm trying to share with you guys is, between now and the next 30 years, these are the organizations or solutions that are going to map and maybe determine how we are going to live. So when we talk about youth as a digital generation, how do you begin to build upon solutions like this to make your life better, to move from one place to the other, or to solve problems that we see, for example, in our environment? You would need the right kind of skills to be able to help you live in the world today and in the world that is coming. When we talk about things like creativity, when we talk about things like collaboration and communication, as a young person, living in a digital world and having digital devices, you would need these life essential skills to be able to make essence of what you're doing. Critical thinking, computational thinking are also very, very important things that you would go with. And I saw a report from the World Economic Forum, which basically also reels most of the skills that I believe that young people should have and should imbibe, even as you all are basically born in the cloud, if I should use that word. Imagine with me today that we're able to use digital technology, which we all have today, to be able to create digital platforms to hold our government accountable. That's a way to use digital technology to move things forward. As a young person as well, imagine if you're able to use these technology platforms to promote things like recycling. We're now in a world whereby everybody is going green, right? Because we need to preserve our world. How can you use technology and digitization to move those things forward? How can you use technology and digitization to solve even the immediate problems that we see today? About a month ago or so, I think it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and it rained heavily. And we saw the pictures. Oroshoki I never saw that in my life. Oroshoki going towards Third Mainland, cars were basically swimming, and we see it every day. Where are the young people today who are able to use technology to move things forward? And that's what I want to share with you today, that you need to imagine the possibility of the devices that you have in your hand and the gift of the internet that we have, and even your own brilliance to begin to create solutions that change our world. And these development goals, 17 of them, your technology and the ones that you have in your hand, your applications, can actually bring all of these development goals to life. But the question is, how ready or how hungry are we to ensure that we do that? I'd like to say that you are the currency and best resource as young people that our country, Nigeria, have, our continent, even as Africa, have, and the world is basically waiting for you. I would encourage that you please do not waste your youth. Use your youth to begin to achieve even much more. I have mentors I'm 40, I have mentors who are 50, I have mentors who are 70, I have mentors who are 80. And one of the interesting things I try to do is to find out what were their lives like when they were 25 or 30. And you see how interesting conversation begins to be. And I step down and I say, what would you like to do now that you're 70 or 80? Imagine if you were 30 and all of them, you hear, if I was 30, I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have done this, or I would have done this, or I would have traveled, or I would have listened and do that. My point is, you have an opportunity today, listening to me and listening to the other people who would come up and share with you, to be able, hopefully, not to make that mistake or to learn even from our experiences, so that you use your youth to make the most of your life. And importantly as well, while you're making those lessons, it's important for you to be digital, because digitization is not going to go away anytime soon. And with that, I want to say thank you for listening to me. I hope I've been able to challenge you a bit, and enjoy the rest of the day.